first public meeting, also known as the Trailhead, for our Priority Pathways study. And Perry, if you want to jump to the next slide. So my name is Mike Cipriano. I'm a Principal Transportation Planner with the Capital Region Council of Governments, also known as CROG. I'll be serving as the project manager on the CROG side for the study. And I'm joined by Heidi Smoker, who is a principal planner with our regional planning development team, as well as Anna Kamaher, who is a senior planner with our transportation department. Also really excited to kind of be joined by tool design and then Foursquare ITP on the study. So I'm going to kick it over to Shauna Kitzman, who is the PM on the consulting side. Let her introduce her team. We'll kind of get started with the presentation. We've got a really good crowd, so thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mike. As mentioned, I'm Shauna Kitzman. I'm the Connecticut Market Lead for Tool Design. I'm a transportation planner and a native of Hartford and longtime resident of West Hartford. So this area is my stomping grounds. I'm joined by my colleagues Perry Scheinbaum and Kate Rosen and Kyle from Foursquare, who are all available to answer any more nuanced questions should they come up as we go. Next slide, please. So tonight we're going to review the origins of what the Priority Pathways Plan is. We're going to talk about who's working on it, what the schedule looks like, what the scope entails, and what you can expect next. Also, good news for you all, it's late in the day and we recognize that, you might have worked a long day or, it's dinner time, so we have baked in some elements of our presentation tonight that keeps you engaged. We want to ask you questions and gather your feedback because that is a very important component of this plan. Next slide, please. Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping. As you heard a moment ago, this Zoom meeting is going to be recorded. We will be able to post this to the project webpage after this event. It usually takes another day or two for post-processing, but one of my colleagues can add the link to the webpage on CROG's website in the chat. And then I'm not sure if we'll follow up with individuals after the meeting, but either way, this will be available for you. There should be a chat function that is active. And again, some of my colleagues will be monitoring that. And we do ask some questions along the way, and we encourage you to pop your answers in the chat if whatever we put in for multiple choice doesn't accurately reflect your own experience. Next slide, please. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mentimeter. It's a pretty simple tool in which we can kind of survey you in real time. There is a QR code, but you could also just use your browser. And can we get that in the chat as well? Thank you. I think it might just take a moment. But this is how we can have a little bit of dialogue as we go through. Perry, are you putting it in? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Why don't we go to the next slide? And hopefully folks can grab that URL. I guess this will be a good test to see if people did grab it. Okay, so just tell us where in the region you live, and you can put it in by your town, city, neighborhood. Okay. It looks like I'm seeing a lot of folks putting their towns and cities in the chat. I'm not sure, Annika, if Mentimeter is working.
I think it is. Just gotta find the original link.
This is Patrice. I put
Hey,
mine in, it recommended that. I mean, it recorded it. So I think
one
it's
of
working.
those is yours. Okay. Well,
Summers
that's
is
good to
mine.
know. Okay.
Folks can also go to menti.com and use the code up here. This 9858 code.
Okay. So it looks like from those that I'm seeing in the chat, and again, you can do it in the chat or Menti, a couple folks from West Hartford. We got Avon, Bolton, East Hartford, Enfield, South Windsor. A new person to Connecticut. Welcome to Hartford from Massachusetts. That's exciting. Uh, and Farmington. Oh, yay. Okay. That looks like a really good cross section of CROG's 38 member town. So I love to see the diverse representation. Okay, great. Let's go to our next slide. Because Priority Pathways is designed to be a regional network that caters to people walking and bicycling, both for utility and for leisure. We want to know a little bit about places that you enjoy walking or biking. Does not need to be in the region, doesn't even need to be in Connecticut. But why don't we go to the next slide and you can add a place where you enjoy walking or biking. Okay, looks like we have someone walking to get lunch out in Torrington, the rail trail in Manchester, also the trail out in Farmington Valley. Couple of mentions of that, okay. The reservoir in West Hartford, bike on the FCHT, Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. Okay, got it. Bolton Notch State Park, and you can even get there without a car, even better. Great. And yeah, Pope Park in Hartford. That's awesome. Okay. Uh, Lots of trail usage I see, and some enjoyment of recreational areas like the reservoir. I'm going to kick it back over to Mike, who's going to talk a little bit about CROG and how we got here.
All right, thanks, Shauna. Yeah, Perry, if you want to jump to the next slide, we should be good. All right, so who are we? And I'll be honest, I had no idea what a COG was until I actually worked for one. But basically, we're a regional planning agency based out of Hartford. We are one of 9 COGs throughout the state. We happen to be the largest both in area and population, serving close to 1 million people. We do represent 38 municipalities, ranging from large, dense urban centers, such as Hartford to small rural communities, and really everything kind of in between. Um, so this makes us a really unique region, being so diverse both demographically as well as geography. Um, so we serve our communities in a wide variety of ways, from local corridor studies to larger, more regionally focused studies such as this one, to helping our communities apply for and procure funding for various initiatives that they might have. We're really lucky to have a really good working relationship with our cities and towns, as well as state agencies such as DOT and DEEP. But we're really here to kind of help our 30 municipalities as best we can. Next slide. So project background. So I think everyone's, kind of aware that in recent years there's been far too many serious injuries or fatalities involving vulnerable users. So really one of our top priorities for this study is to help identify, infrastructure that would provide better safety for both bikes and peds throughout the region. We want to develop a prioritization plan, which will help identify those locations or corridors that could benefit from having better facilities or infrastructure to make it safer for these users. Um, we understand that, walking and biking to some people might be classified as recreational, and that's okay. And then for others, riding to and from work might be like their only way to get there. Um, and that can pose some challenges and some, potentially dangerous, aspects to get from point A to point B. Um, so really, aside from the safety component of the study, we want to do a better job of connecting our communities for these users. Um, so for example, maybe there's someone in Summers who wants to jump on their bike and grab lunch in Enfield, or someone who lives in Glastonbury, and wants to walk over to work at Pratt and Whitney in East Hartford, something like that. So I think Sean is probably going to be touching on this, later in the presentation itself. But we really do want to kind of focus on both recreational and utility users. Um, so we're not just going to, focus on a trail through the woods. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I love a good trail through the woods. But we do want to kind of look at the utility component here as well, and trying to identify locations where, separate and/or protected facilities kind of make sense for people. Next slide, please. Okay. So looking at this slide, you're going to see a couple of examples of our bike ped initiatives here at CROG. This includes our Complete Streets Plan and our East Coast Greenway study. So Complete Streets plans have become increasingly popular, throughout the country in an effort to kind of create safer and a more friendly environment for everyone, not just cars, not just bikes, not just pedestrians or vulnerable users, but really everyone. So we're kind of excited to kind of build off of that. Our East Coast Greenway study, we're hoping to kind of wrap that up this summer. But the East Coast Greenway, hosts over 15 million people annually. Um, and that stretches, roughly 3,000 miles through 15 states and then DC. That goes from Florida up to Maine. So our East Coast Greenway study, it's really, centered on a 14-mile gap and the trail through the communities of Simsbury, Bloomfield, Hartford, and then East Hartford. It's really the last major gap in our region. And while it is focused on those four communities, we really see this as having regional impacts. Um, but yeah, so we see the East Coast Greenway as like a main highway or backbone through the region for our active transportation users. And we do want our study to kind of build off of that one and kind of take it to the next step by creating better connections for town centers, jobs, and really where people kind of live and play. So we're hopeful we can kind of do that. But again, thank you guys for joining us today. And I'm going to kick it over to Shauna for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Mike. So as mentioned, the Priority Pathways Network will act as that active transportation spine that serves the 38 communities of CROG. I love that map with all of the labeled towns. It just shows the very wide breadth of the region. It goes, northwest from Canton, east to Mansfield, and then north from Enfield and south to Southington. So there's so many different communities within there, including our capital region. But there's also a lot of different landscapes and a lot of different land uses. And so we have to envision just the diverse context that we are thinking about a network that serves all. You can go to the next slide, please, Perry. We would like to get a firm grasp on what your top two primary modes of transportation are. I think I have a guess on one of the top modes, but let's see if I'm right. Okay, we have still people voting, I'm sure, but looks like cars in the lead. No surprise there here in Connecticut in 2025. But walking is not doing too shabby at 63%.
Oh, he's all the way up here.
Um, and then it looks like we have people who use a bicycle or other like micromobility, like a moped, scooter, or e-bike, both at 13%. Um, so probably comes as no surprise that most people in our region in our state drive or get a ride. That's the status quo, just based on our historical land use and the way that our communities have been set up. But there is opportunity to change this, and there's opportunity to make walking, biking, or rolling a more compelling option. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. If you were to think about some of those places that you enjoy walking or biking that you mentioned earlier, and think about what type of infrastructure makes you feel comfortable and safe, what kind of transportation mode would you use if you could feel good as you might feel in a car?
I think we got that Mentimeter thing figured out.
Yeah, it's cool to see it in real time. Um,
Also, thank you to everyone putting stuff in the chat. We also see
yeah,
that and it's
yeah.
great. So,
It looks like some people would like to ride the bus more, as well as ride a bike. I guess public transportation, maybe it's the train. I shouldn't just say bus. More people like to ride a bike. I know that's true of myself. I'm like many people in our population, I'm interested but concerned. Would like to ride, but I just have some fears about how I think drivers are on the road and what our infrastructure, um, what that has for us out there. And it looks like Ned would like to ride his motorcycle more. So I appreciate that. Okay, so why are we thinking about bike and pedestrian infrastructure? Um, Physical activity just helps us as human beings. Being more physical prevents chronic illnesses and allows people to live healthier lives. It's better for the environment the less that we use carbon emitting transportation options. Um, More people who are walking and biking means there's more eyes on the street for public safety concerns. It enhances community cohesion, um, reduces depression, and if you have any other ideas, please pop those in the chat. But all around, it can be good economical sense. It also can save you money if you are opting to walk or roll. Next slide, please. So when thinking about current status, what are the top two barriers that you experience or your family experiences when considering walking or rolling within your community? And while you're doing that, I'll just read a couple of the inputs from the chat. So walking and biking makes you happy and is better for local business and real estate values. Okay, yes, and I see Annika did just put in the chat that if anyone joined us a little late, there is a Mentimeter poll that we are using. Um, and we can see some real-time feedback. So it looks like the infrastructure as it is today does not get people to where they need to go. That is far and away a top barrier. Another issue is time and just the amount of time it might take to walk or ride. In terms of infrastructure, it looks like lack of crossings and some poor maintenance of sidewalks, or maybe even no sidewalks. So I'm going to look over here at the chat. So one thought is that municipalities might treat bicycle and pedestrian needs as an afterthought. And that people are inattentive when they're driving. I might even add sometimes drive aggressively or impaired, and all of these can contribute to a lack of feeling of safety. But it looks like safety here is a key concern. And then, yeah, lack of sidewalks in Bolton. Okay. I think that's a good snapshot of where we are today.
And Shona, real
mhm.
quick, we're also going to be able to save the chat, so we're going to have all these comments too.
Okay,
Out there.
cool. Thinking about biking in your community, similar question. Okay, it looks like neck and neck here are the lack of bike lanes or underprotected facilities, as well as bike or vehicles who speed or drivers who speed. Generally insufficient bicycle infrastructure, and then a couple folks don't own a bike. And then thinking about car versus bicycle, it looks like speeding is a major concern. And then bike parking or parking in bike lanes. So car parking in bike lanes, as well as Patrice representing our friends over in Bolton, but narrow roads that don't really lend themselves to feeling safe, sharing with cars. Okay. I think we can move on to the next. Great. Okay. And thinking about our project goals, as mentioned, this really is an effort to create a safe and comfortable network for people who just want to enjoy our region more. There's so many historical landmarks. There are regional destinations, whether it be for shopping or employment centers or medical facilities, as well as recreational facilities. So we want to create a network, a way for people to get to these major destinations. It's also important to have safe options for those who either opt not to have a car or prefer to have a car light lifestyle, as well as those who cannot afford the cost of purchasing, insuring, maintaining a car. Cars are very expensive. And it's important that we develop a network that suits all of these users as well as all ages. So we would want a network that suits those from ages 8 to 80. And thinking about those who, either can't drive or maybe have abilities that limit them from driving, we want to make sure that they have dignified transportation options as well. And last but not least, we want this network to support active commuting for work, for running errands, for daily transportation, for social trips. It's really envisioned to leverage a variety of infrastructure, both on and off-road facilities. Yeah, and in order for people to leave the car keys at home, if that is a choice, walking, biking, rolling, and just relatedly, taking transit, it has to be very compelling. If it's not easy, if it's not intuitive, if it doesn't get you to where you need to go and efficiently, and you have a choice, you might not choose that. So we want it to be compelling for people to say, I'm gonna ride my bike to work today. Next slide. Okay. So in thinking about what would encourage you to ride your bike or maybe to buy a bike or to walk or roll more within your community, let's do another poll. I'm going to give this a minute just because there's a little bit more content to digest. Okay, it looks like I'm just going to look at the chat for a moment. It appears that better connections to my destinations is the front runner, as well as the need for new bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, followed closely by intersection improvements, including crosswalks, better signalization, and signal separation. Okay, and then we have another few inputs here in the chat. So thinking about the seasonal issues, so snow removal, necessary when it's colder. The need for local advocacy and the call for each municipality to have a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee, because the needs of bicyclists and pedestrians otherwise might get overlooked during the planning process. And then I will just mention a couple of the ones that are getting less highly ranked. So less demand for improved maintenance of existing facilities, additional crossing locations, shower or changing facilities at work, and other, which might have been captured in the chat. We also have a good comment, which does make me want to mention. So Kim wrote, also need to control the speed of cars. There is a regional safety action plan that is underway at this time as well by CROG. Our team has a lot of crossover. So Annika, Perry, myself, and I are working on that. So just know that there's a regional plan looking at crash analytics and is related to this work. So yes, safety is very important and necessary to building out a connected bike and ped network. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, our schedule. Luckily, when I looked at this yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, are we already halfway through? No, this is not to scale, but this is to say we have about a year left. We started in the fall of 2024. We have a draft existing conditions review that the team is going over now. We did a slate of municipal outreach in March. And we are starting to get ready for some springtime and summertime engagement events, which I'll get to in a couple of slides. And we will start doing some network identification, which will lead into developing that implementation strategy and our final plan as we get further into like mid 2026 and plan to wrap up in June of 2026. Our advisory committee has been meeting since January. So this is made up of about 15 different community leaders, people who are making a difference in the different municipalities, as well as some organizations that represent different interests. So this is a pretty busy slide, but we thought it was important to show we have advisory committee members who are from Bike Walk Connecticut, Central Connecticut Health District, representing that public health perspective in this conversation. The founder of 86Go, a recreational run club, but also de facto community organizing club. Connecticut Department of Transportation, we have many different stakeholders from that organization in the room, as well as older adults from AARP, and then some of our statewide trails interests at Connecticut Department of Environment or Energy and Environment, as well as some local town planners and engineers. In terms of municipal engagement, so as mentioned, in March, we held 10 virtual focus groups with different planners, engineers, at some points, representatives from Public Works or Parks and Recreation departments. We had really great turnout. Out of the 38 municipalities, 34 came to these conversations. The way that CROG organized it was clustering like 3 to 4 communities. So we would host with like Canton, Avon, Simsbury in one discussion. This was super valuable. We heard straight from municipalities what their opportunities are, what their constraints are, what current plans they have on the books, what the general appetite is among their public about what the community wants, what they don't want, and any sort of history that we should know about as we dive in. The common themes really included that the 38 municipalities, some of them are very big and they have a lot of staff and they have a ample amount of resources. And other communities are very small and they're working with a small team. They might not have an engineer on staff. They might not have a full-time planner on staff and they contract that role out. So because there are different levels of what these communities have and the amount of technical expertise they have in-house, there really is a need for support from the regional, from CROG. There's also a desire and a community need really for increased transportations for all people. There really is a groundswell of interest, and we want to capture this momentum and build upon the demand. Last but not least, there's a call for change, not only in the infrastructure in changing the way that we design our streets and build more infrastructure that considers bicyclists and pedestrians not as an afterthought, but as a primary user. There's also a call for change in education for people who might want to use our roads as a bicyclist or a pedestrian, but also for drivers. And I will go on to the next slide. Okay. And thinking about a destination where you would want to ride or walk, let us know in an ideal world, let's say it's 20 years from now and that a connected and comprehensive bike and ped network is built out, where would you go first? This one seems a little bit more evenly split. Let's see. To run errands, same. To restaurants, shops, or entertainment venues. Alan in the chat says everywhere within 10 miles. Love that. Let's see. Ooh, strong desire to go to trailheads and parks. And just for fun. Awesome mix of utility and recreation. As well as for exercise. Cool. A fair amount would go to their family, friends, or neighbors. All right, awesome. Let's keep moving along here. Our plan outline. So the plan itself is going to include three primary components. It will include a review of existing plans and policies, as well as studies. We are currently identifying destinations across the region. This has been an activity that we did at our last task force meeting in February. And we are also summarizing the existing transportation infrastructure in the region. It'll also include a network identification. So this entails a conceptual network of walking and bicycling routes that will feed into a recommended plan. And then that implementation plan is going to include short and long-term actions. It will identify different funding streams for how the region can actualize such a robust network. It'll include a schedule for implementation and will also capture the Complete Streets policy review so that this plan is compatible with previous work that CROG has adopted. People generally do like to complain about where they don't feel safe walking or riding, myself included. So I will just tell you a quick anecdote. A few years ago, I took a family trip to Amsterdam, and I was really inspired when I got back to the Hartford region to ride my bike to work, and I rode it down Asylum from West Hartford to Hartford. I thought I was going to die, and I was like, never again. So I would say Asylum have. That was years ago. I think it might be a little better now, but tell us where you don't feel safe riding or walking. Okay, it looks like we're still getting feedback in um, Berlin Turnpike +1. Yes. Most of the state highways, as well as some commercial cores like downtown Main Street in Manchester. Farmington Ave, so I would say maybe that includes West Hartford Center, but the whole corridor. Route 44 in Avon and Canton, yes. I'm gonna just look over here at the chat. So Hebron Avenue and South Main Street in Glastonbury. And then the entire Enfield Commercial District, it's a horror show. Someone, Death March Avon Mountain. Oh, Death March on Avon Mountain. I've never heard it called that, but yes. Okay, I'm seeing definitely some trends here. Can we scroll down, Perry? Does it show the ones at the bottom? No. Okay. Mountain Road in West Hartford. Okay. Oh, Silas Deane Highway. And Cromwell Ave in Rocky Hill. I don't like that there are so many places to choose from, but I do like that we're seeing from so many different communities and good representation among this group. Okay. I think with that, we can move on to the next slide. Okay. As mentioned, it's finally spring here in Connecticut, and we are excited to get out there and start to do some engagement events. So we are looking at a variety of different happenings. Most of them are, beloved community festivals or Statewide Trails Day. What we're trying to do is connect with people who either historically haven't been captured in these planning processes, but also one of our earlier tasks was to look at previous plans and studies that have already been conducted in the region and look at where we haven't heard from people as much. So we are targeting some engagement events that are just slightly out of like the norm. We are doing summer in Hartford, like the food truck festival and I believe Jazz Fest, but we're also looking at like Juneteenth in Bloomfield. Um, Anyone on my team have any on the tip of their tongue that we are
Be at
likely going to do?
Parkville. We'll be at Parkville on the
Mm.
10th.
Parkville Market on the 10th with an
Full
alpaca.
full and notch, something like
Bolton
that.
Notch
Cool.
Park.
Yeah.
Mm. And then maybe we'll see. There was a pretty strong support among the group to maybe set up a table on like the Farmington Canal Trail and just be out there on a nice sunny weekend day and talk to people. Um, That'll be happening in May through July. Um, we are also organizing with our advisory committee as well as elected officials from select municipalities within the region and a couple of major employers or employment clusters, including one of our first stops we're hoping will be Day Hill Road in Windsor, to do walk and bike audits around those key employment areas so that we can understand for folks who would like to ride or walk to work, what are some good things that are available in infrastructure today, and what are some things that would be necessary to make that travel more safe and comfortable. We will do one more public meeting. I believe that won't be until probably later this year. But this is our first meeting, and we wanted to make sure that our community is aware that this process is on its way. We encourage you to visit our project website. And yeah, I think with that, we can move on to the next slide. We are at the end of our meeting, and we do have a few minutes. I see a few people have put some thoughts in the chat as we close. Would anyone like to just unmute and share their thoughts about what we've talked about? I can read them for anyone.
I could say something if you don't mind.
Sure. Hi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm David Smith. I live in West Hartford. I had a bypass in 1994 and didn't know what exercise was. And since then, I've been going to the gym and eating properly. And I started riding my bike down by the river at Riverfront Recapture and discovered a beautiful trail to Windsor that my friends and I would do on Sunday mornings. And I've just done it for years, but now spinal stenosis has taken over. So my numbness doesn't let me walk or ride a bike safely. So I have a trike with a motor assist. Not it doesn't go very fast. I go slower, but I'm able now to go back to the reservoir, which we used to do. I go down to the river, and my daughter has an e-bike and rides as a professor at Manchester Community College. And I showed her how to find that connection at the Charter Oak Bridge and connect with the Greenway right to her campus from West Hartford. If you're careful going down some of the streets. But it's a culture thing, and it's kept me alive, and I'd like to continue it. And what you're doing is very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
I'm 80 and retired now, so
Okay.
I plan to continue. 80 is not the end for me.
Absolutely not. Thanks, David.
Could I say something?
Sure. Is
Hi.
that Patrick?
Yeah, hi, Patrick Thibodeau, Enfield. I used to live in Washington, and they have
State
a
or DC?
DC, and they have a fantastic bike infrastructure there. And I think part of it is due that they have basically a committee, a bicycle advocacy committee, which advocates for bicycle and pedestrian. I'd like to try to do something like that in Enfield, but I really don't know where to start, and I really
Okay.
don't know what the parameters of that should be. And I think it would be really helpful if CROG could provide us some expert advice about how we could approach the town, how we can make the argument for something like this, and what we can state are the goals of an advisory committee. Because I'm very worried that we're going to be doing a lot of development in our town, And they're going to continue with their age-old practice of really not planning for pedestrians at all. That's my spiel.
Okay, so Patrick, just to summarize, you want to have a little bit more sort of guidance or structure on what a town-hosted bicycle pedestrian advocacy committee would entail.
Right. If you could provide us, with some help on how we approach a town and how we structure an argument for that and how we make a case for something like that, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, we
I like to
can.
add. I'd like to add something to what he's saying, and that is having. I'm president of Bike Walk Glastonbury, and important parts of our building trails and walkways has been, first of all, our involvement with our local town committee, as well as a engineer who works for the town, who has been very helpful in getting projects put together, getting grants, and getting things done. And we have a bicycle advisory committee as well as the Bike Walk Glastonbury people. And we've built mountain bike trails for kids and for adults. We've advocated for the Putnam Bridge crossing and many trails to avoid bad roads in Glastonbury. And I would start with your town board, and then also work with the town government, particularly your town engineer, because they know what's possible and they have access to things that we don't. That's what I've got to say.
I will also throw out, we have a bike and ped committee that meets every quarter at CROG. Our next one is going to be May 14th, so a little bit over 2 weeks from now. So if anyone is interested in attending that, we're happy to have you. And Patrick, I can certainly talk to you about kind of starting something up in Enfield as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a helpful feedback for us just in thinking about the long-term implications of the plan itself. So thank you for sharing that thought. And Alan, thank you for your work in your community and for being, a resource for your peers.
You're welcome.
Say, Shauna.
Hi, Ed.
Oh,
How are
hi.
you?
Yeah, hi. Could I speak just for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, folks. My name is Ed Pollack. I'm the chair of the West Hartford Pedestrian and Bicycle Commission. I'd like to thank CROG and the consultants for this important work. And my comment is that, many of us are working within our communities, within the bubbles of our communities. And of course, we're restricted geographically to the town limits. And what we can advocate for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. But the real value, of course, of CROG and of this study is that it's regional. And so with that in mind, will this study identify opportunities for making connections between communities where there may be existing infrastructure for pedestrians and bicyclists, which doesn't quite get to the town lines, or maybe it does get to the town line in one town, but the adjacent town doesn't quite make it there? Will you identify those places where, with just a little bit more infrastructure, all of a sudden, the opportunities especially for cyclists, really can increase exponentially when you start eliminating these choke points? So be interested in your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ed. And yes, this became abundantly clear when we did those municipal focus groups with, we we have 169 little fiefdoms in Connecticut, and but a lot of us are working towards shared goals, and so one of the intended outcomes of this project is to really have the continuity across town boundaries, because often if you're walking or riding, you don't know when you're crossing a municipal boundary. You don't really care. Like, you just want to get to your destination safely and comfortably. So yes, I would say that is absolutely an intention of this project. Another thing that came up when we asked folks what they thought the benefit of a regional plan would be, and one thing that came up was the peer pressure, right, of your neighbors moving towards a more connected and safe bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure or culture, and like kind of like getting pulled into that tide. So hopefully there is some peer pressure that we help build more regionally. Um, so yeah, I think that that came across loud and clear when we spoke with folks. And I think that's the benefit too of having CONDOT staff from different departments in the room at our advisory committee, as well as we're in touch with them about the statewide action plan, safety action plan, oh, sorry, active transportation plan, um, and the statewide trails folks. So yes to all of it. And then we've even done a little bit of look even slightly beyond the region's boundaries, kind of just thinking a little bit more like, okay, what is even happening outside the walls of CROG, so to speak. So yes on those points.
Great. Thanks very much.
It looks like there is demand to increase the ability to safely cycle from Hartford through West Hartford and Farmington to the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, yes, which is proven to be a very popular destination and one in which we will certainly account for in our plan. Fran asks, will you be posting on your website the outreach location and dates? Yes. We've been internally doing our scheduling and preparation, but we're still finalizing exactly which events we'll be at. But yes, once those are firmed up, we will post them on the website. Another comment, I think, about the bike connection from Elmwood Center to Newington Junction, and increasing access from CT Fast Track will increase multimodal trips between the Newington area and into Hartford. I like that. And then a comment that Massachusetts is doing a good job, and we could look to our neighbors at the north to see what they're doing. Yes, I think Massachusetts Department of Transportation has some really great guidance and some good practices. They also have some legislation that accounts for bike and ped and complete streets with a little bit more teeth, perhaps. I think that concludes our meeting tonight. We appreciate each of you taking time out of your busy evenings to hang out with us. And as mentioned earlier, we will share this recording on the project website, which is under crog.org. Anything else you'd like to say, Mike?
I was just gonna possibly go through some of the pop-ups like super quick.
Sure.
Pull that up.
Yeah.
So these aren't, they're not finalized yet, but this is kind of what we're thinking. So as mentioned, the Parkville Market, that's going to be on May 10th. Um, Bicycles on Main, I think Kevin had sent that over to us. Main Street and Old Weathersfield's a great spot. Off Main Experience over in Manchester, we saw some comments on improving the downtown experience for bikes and peds in Manchester. Trails Day, that's going to be across the region. As Shauna mentioned, the Juneteenth over in Bloomfield, Taste the Caribbean over in Hartford. There's an event up in Stafford, Stafford Springs Arts on Main, Coventry Farmers Market, the opening of the Indian Notch Park at Bolton Lake. I don't know if there's a date for that. I think I think so. I saw someone in the chat ask what the day was. I think it just says end of June. I'm not sure if Patrice is still on, if she knows. But yeah, so stuff like that
I am
really.
here, but I don't know the date of it.
Okay, well, we can find that out. And
Yep.
as Shauna said, once we kind of finalize these, we'll post them on our website. And if you have any questions on anything, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. A lot of really good comments, a lot of good feedback, really good participation. Happy to see the amount of people that we have in here who are kind of passionate about, bike ped safety. We do take that seriously here. I know, Foursquare and Tool do as well. But yeah, so thank you guys again.
Thank you.